Charlie McKenna with Lillie's Q, and we're here today. We're gonna smoke 2 sides of salmon on the mill scale 94-gallon smoker. So as you can see, we got these nice, beautiful sides of salmon. They do have the skin still on the back side. That helps move the whole side from where you're prepping it into the smoker. So I like to keep the skin on for this method and this recipe. We're gonna give it a Thai glaze. We built a little glaze out of some different stuff that kind of influenced from the Thai region. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this in the smoker and just smoke it with the glaze on top. As we smoke, this whole side will smoke in anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour at 225 degrees. I really like to do fish at a lower temperature, so that's why I dropped it down to 225. When I'm doing pork ribs or brisket or any of those other type of meats that kind of take a more longer heat, then I really like to do it with a higher temp, 250, 275. But for fish and seafood, I really like to keep the temp down to kind of keep it nice and gentle on the fish itself. So we have the 2 sides of salmon here. We're gonna get them ready to go in the smoker. This recipe is very simple. It's basically make the glaze. You can find the recipe, the Thai recipe glaze online at lilliesq.com. But the mindset is that it has the gold sauce in it, Lillie's Q Gold. So we use some of our products to make another glaze that we use for different types of barbecue and different styles of food. So we're gonna get this going. We got the sides. I have cleaned the belly off the side. Mainly the reason I clean the belly, and I'll take that belly and what you can do with it, you can either cut it up into tiny little portions to cook at night, saute, or you can make a tartare out of it. Definitely don't throw it away and use it for some other purpose. But the reason I like to take the belly off the 2 sides of salmon is I want the salmon to be as even as possible all the way down, so that when we're cooking it in the smoker, you can see it tails off in the depth of the salmon to the tail end a little bit, but I want the salmon to cook as evenly as possible throughout the cook. When you make it the exact same size, then it'll cook much more even than it would if it wasn't or had the belly on. So I take that off, nice clean piece of salmon. Another thing that some people do is they may score down the middle here and then score here and here down to the skin. That would make little like square portions. When the salmon was cooked, it would be a little bit separated. So you could take a spatula and just kind of portion it off. I like to just flake it off after we're done. This Thai salmon is great when it comes out of the smoker. You can serve it as a whole side for your holiday meal, or you can serve it at any meal during the summer, which is a beautiful time to serve salmon. We're gonna get the glaze on the salmon. This cooks at around 225 degrees, as I mentioned, and we want to glaze it throughout the cooking process when it's in the mill scale, and we will glaze it roughly every 15 minutes. And as I said, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to cook salmon. You don't want to overcook the salmon, and one of the things that I see a decent number of is like when you start to see the white stuff coming out of the salmon, that's basically where it's starting to overcook. All right, that's pushing the albumin, is what it's called, out of the protein itself. So if you start to see that white come out, it will come out near the tail end, obviously because it's thinner than it will come before it comes out here. But we want to make sure that we're just cooking a nice, right to where it's finished, nice flaky salmon, but not dry and dry it out and overcook it. So roughly about 45 minutes. Maybe a little bit longer, up to an hour at 225 degrees, depending on how you held your smoker and how consistent the temperature was held throughout the cook. But first thing I like to do is obviously get this salmon on a tray. I like to get it nice and clean so that I don't make a complete mess. I can take and just clean the tray when I'm done getting this in the smoker. So the first thing we do is we'll take our Thai glaze. As I mentioned, you can get this recipe on lilliesq.com for the glaze. You can use this glaze on ribs, you can use it on salmon, you can use it basically on anything you want. We love it with salmon because of the flavor profile that goes into the glaze itself. So first thing I'll do is I will kind of make it easier and a little bit quicker. I'll pour a little strip down the middle of the salmon. Not too much, I'm not trying to drip it all off on the tray, because what I can do is I can come back with a little bit of brush, let it drip a little bit. Give that a little taste. So what we'll do is we'll use the brush to kind of like build it on. Now this first layer, you don't have to go super thick. You just want it to like coat the salmon as a whole. And when we finish plating this, we'll take some like Thai herbs and Thai peppers, and we'll garnish the salmon when it comes out of the smoker with those herbs and with those peppers, and really finish the product off. But you can see it's not a ton of glaze to go on. In the beginning, just pour a little bit down the front as we'll brush this around. Again, this is another rather simple recipe that You don't have to do a lot too, besides make sure that you're running your cooker at the right temperature and make sure the salmon doesn't overcook. There's not, besides glazing it every 15 minutes, there's not a ton of work to do throughout this cook. All right, but we'll get the front brushed, the ends brushed. We'll get that now. So we have that nice and neat. I will give it a little dusting of Q-Rub afterwards, just to get some salt and make sure that the salt and the fish is completely seasoned all the way through. I do put the salt on after the glaze for this one, because the glaze obviously will help the Q-Rub kind of stick to the fish. All right, so nice easy glaze out of the shaker from above, makes it nice and even and not a lot of leftover seasoning on your tray somewhere else, not on the product that you're actually using. We're gonna get this salmon into the smoker, and one thing I do like to do when I do that is I like to keep my grate and my smoker as clean as possible. You know, that old adage that I've heard people say that, you can just smoke in your smoker constantly and never clean it. That's not actually the case. You need to make sure all the excess grease is out of there. You need to make sure all the like scum that sticks to the grate comes off of there and it's cleaned. You want a clean smoker whenever you're smoking things, so you should definitely clean your smoker before you start or at the end of each cook. One of the ways to keep this a lot cleaner is I like to lay just butcher paper on the grate itself so that the salmon can sit on that and anything that drips out will be on the butcher paper. Make it a lot easier to take that butcher paper out once you take the salmon out, and it'll be a lot cleaner, a lot easier for you to accomplish making sure that your smoker stays clean and is ready for your next cook. We have the glaze on the salmon with the Q-Rub. We're also obviously gonna put this in the mill scale smoker. As mentioned, I like to take this butcher paper and lay it down first. So what I'll do is I'll shut the firebox a little bit, just so when you open the door, it doesn't suck some ash onto the grate. It's kind of a trick I learned by doing. So I like to lay that butcher paper right on the grate. Obviously that helps keep the grate as clean as possible. It makes it easier for me to clean up once I'm done smoking the salmon. So I like to take my hands, kind of just slide it under the side, kind of get them to the middle. And I'll put it down here right near the end, and I'll kind of move it together. I usually put the tail near the front door and the thicker piece near the back of the smoker, where it holds a little bit more residual heat. As you can see, we got the salmon into the cooker. We'll get the door shut and get it back up to 225 degrees. As mentioned, we'll smoke this for about 45 minutes to an hour, closer to the 45 usually if we can consistently keep our smoker at 225, and then we'll use the glaze every 15 minutes to continue to put a glaze on throughout the cook. All right, here we are back with the Thai glazed salmon, the sides of salmon. I'm gonna take them out of the smoker now. They've been in there about 45 minutes. They're at a temperature around 125 degrees, which is a good temperature for salmon, so it's not overcooked. But we're gonna pull the salmon out using the paper that we had in there to help keep the grates clean, and then we're gonna garnish the salmon and then show you the finished product. But what I like to do is either you can have the platter that you're gonna use the salmon on, or you can transfer it to this. What I use is like an upside down sheet tray. It just helps me get this whole sides of salmon because they're pretty big. And when they're cooked, they get a lot more fragile than when they're raw. So basically we'll go to the mill scale here. It's running pretty nice. We'll open this up. You can see the sides of salmon in there. What I like to do is we'll get this tray over here. Then I like to just kind of like finagle it underneath. Push that tray right underneath on the paper. Then I can move those nice glazed salmon out. Wipe my hand down. Now you can see here, we have this beautiful glazed salmon. The glaze is set up and kind of gets sticky because it has sugar in it. But you could, if you wanted to, put more glaze on. I like to just kind of take the brush and kind of just make sure it looks nice and pretty around. Juice is done. If I missed a couple spots, I may put a little bit of glaze on the outside just to get a little fresh top on there. You can see, glaze it up nice. Now, kind of sticking with the Thai salmon flavor profile, We have a bunch of herbs that we kind of garnish this with. So we have mint, cilantro, and Thai basil, along with some sesame seeds and some diced red finger peppers. But the herbs, I really like to just kind of like rip up with my fingers, sprinkle it on. It's nice that you can present this kind of on the paper, on the tray, so that you don't have to move it. We'll sprinkle these, the torn up mint around first, right? Get this going. You could like chiffonade all these herbs, but I really like the like broken herbs up where it looks like they're odd pieces. We'll get some of the Thai basil on there. Tear that up a little bit. Get some more Thai basil on this second piece. So as you tear them up, you just kind of drop them on. We've already picked the herbs where we took most of the stem off. If you get any stem that's still left in there, you can just pick it and throw it off. Not a big fan of the stem on the herbs going in there. Last but not least, we have kind of like the cilantro leaves. So we'll sprinkle those on. If you're serving this at like an event, you can just get your server right off the tray. And I like the sesame seeds. Right, we'll get those on there. Just try to make that salmon nice and pretty and beautiful for everyone to eat. And then last but not least, we always want a little heat when it goes with this dish. So we'll put the kind of peppers that we sliced on an angle or a bias. We'll finish this garnish. Right. Set that down. Kind of move this to the side, clean the front of the board up. Sesame seed. And there you have 2 sides of nicely cooked Thai glazed salmon. For more recipes and tips, you can follow us at lilliesq.com.